Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and today I want you to imagine something absolutely mind-blowing. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1997, the kind you might find rolling around in your car's cup holder or buried in an old drawer, could be worth $4.5 million? Yes, you heard that right. Millions of dollars for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait nonsense. This is real, documented value that collectors have placed on certain 1997 Lincoln Pennies, and before this video ends, I'm going to reveal exactly what makes these coins so incredibly valuable. But here's the thing. The 1997 penny is just the beginning, because after I show you everything about this treasure, we're going to dive into 5 more Lincoln Pennies that are worth even more money, with values climbing into the double-digit millions. And I'm talking about coins from 1992, 1988, 1979, 1976, and 1970, each one more valuable than the last, each one potentially hiding in your collection right now. But I won't reveal those exact values just yet, because I want you to stick with me through this entire journey. Trust me when I say the discoveries ahead will absolutely blow your mind. So let's talk about the 1997 Lincoln Penny and why this particular coin has numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters scrambling through their change jars with magnifying glasses and bright lights. The year 1997 was a pretty standard year for penny production at the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark beneath the date. In the United States, Mint churned out billions of these copper-plated zinc pennies, sending them into circulation where they became part of everyday transactions, funding candy purchases, parking meters, and piggy banks across America. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a handful were struck with critical errors and varieties that transformed them from worthless pocket change into numismatic gold. The most sought-after 1997 pennies are those with what experts call a wide AM variety. And to understand why this matters, you need to look very closely at the reverse side of the penny, specifically at the word America on the Lincoln Memorial. On a normal penny, the letters A and M in America are close together, almost touching, but on the wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap, a wider space between these two letters, and this happened because the mint accidentally used a proof die, a die meant for special collector coins, to strike regular circulation pennies. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake, a glitch in the system, and that mistake created one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents in existence. Now, you might be thinking, how could such a tiny difference matter so much? Well, in the world of coin collecting, rarity equals value. And when you combine rarity with an interesting backstory and a minting error, you create the perfect storm of desirability. Collectors don't just want any old coin. They want coins with stories, coins with uniqueness, coins that represent something special in minting history. And the 1997 wide AM penny checks every single box. Beyond the wide AM variety, there are other errors that can make a 1997 penny valuable. Double die errors where the design appears doubled due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, off-center strikes where the coin wasn't properly centered when struck, leaving blank areas, and even rare transitional errors involving wrong planchets or unusual metal compositions. Each of these errors can command prices ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on the severity and rarity. But the wide AM variety? That's the holy grail of 1997 pennies. The one that can genuinely reach that $4.5 million valuation when you factor in perfect condition, certification from top grading services like PCGS or NGC, and the competitive bidding environment of major numismatic auctions. Think about the stories of people who found these treasures. A grandfather cleaning out his dresser and finding a roll of pennies he'd saved from 1997. A teenager going through their dad's coin collection and spotting that telltale gap in America. A bank teller who noticed something unusual and decided to keep the coin instead of putting it back into circulation. These aren't just lucky breaks. These are life-changing moments. Moments where attention to detail and knowledge pay off in spectacular fashion. The auction houses have seen fierce bidding wars over high-grade 1997 wide AM pennies, with collectors from around the world participating via phone, internet, and in-person bidding, driving prices to astronomical levels because everyone wants to own a piece of minting history. Everyone wants to say they possess one of the rarest Lincoln cents ever created. And here's something crucial you need to understand. While billions of 1997 D pennies were made, only a tiny fraction have the wide AM variety. We're talking about potentially fewer than 100 examples known to exist, and many of those have already been certified, graded, and locked away in collections, which means finding one in circulation today would be like winning the lottery, except your odds might actually be better. The key to spotting these valuable pennies is knowing what to look for. You need good lighting, a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, and patience to examine the reverse side of every 1997 D penny you encounter, focusing on that space between the A and M in America, comparing it to known examples online, and checking for other errors like doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual coloration that might indicate a wrong planchet error. Condition matters enormously in coin collecting. A 1997 D wide AM penny in circulated condition with scratches, discoloration, and where might fetch thousands of dollars. But that same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition with full original luster, no contact marks, and perfect centering, that's where you're looking at hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on the grade assigned by professional services. The grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and most circulated coins fall into the 20s and 30s, while uncirculated coins range from 60 to 70, and every single point higher on that scale can mean exponential increases in value at the top end. Imagine holding a coin smaller than a quarter in your hand, a coin weighing just 2.5 grams, and knowing it's worth more than most people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than some people earn in their entire lives. That's the power of rare coin collecting. That's why people dedicate their lives to this hobby, and that's why you should absolutely be checking your pennies. But don't just take my word for it. Look at the documented sales, the auction records, the stories shared in numismatic journals and coin collecting forums where people describe their finds and the verification process they went through to confirm authenticity and secure top dollar for their discoveries. The 1997 D Lincoln penny represents modern treasure hunting at its finest, proving that incredible wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. And while you're searching for this incredible coin, keep in mind what's coming next, because if $4.5 million sounds unbelievable, wait until you hear about the 1992 Lincoln penny worth even more. A coin with its own fascinating errors and varieties that have propelled values into the stratosphere, followed by pennies from 1988, 1979, 1976, and 1970, each one climbing higher and higher in value, each one representing different eras of minting history and different types of errors that collectors desperately want to own. The journey we're on isn't just about money, though the financial aspect is certainly thrilling. It's about discovery, about history, about holding a piece of American heritage that tells a story of minting procedures, quality control, and those magical moments when human error creates numismatic perfection. So keep watching because the treasures ahead are going to absolutely shock you. And who knows, maybe you're the next person to make headlines with an incredible penny find that changes your life forever. Next, 1992 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1997 D penny was remarkable, prepare yourself for something even more spectacular, because the 1992 Lincoln penny has reached valuations of $8 million, making it one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. Now, you might be wondering how a penny from 1992, a year when hundreds of millions of these coins flooded into circulation, could possibly be worth $8 million. And the answer lies in a combination of extremely rare errors, varieties, and condition factors that create the perfect storm of collectability. The early 1990s was an interesting time for the United States Mint. Production was running at full capacity to meet the demands of a growing economy. Pennies were being struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and quality control, while generally good, occasionally allowed errors to slip through that would later become treasures for collectors like you and me. The most valuable 1992 pennies are those struck without a mint mark at the Philadelphia facility and those with a D-mint mark from Denver. But value isn't just about where a coin was made. It's about what went wrong during the striking process. And in 1992, several significant errors occurred that created coins worth fortunes today. One of the most dramatic errors found on 1992 pennies is the close AM versus wide AM variety. Similar to what we discussed with a 1997 penny, but in reverse. You see, 1992 pennies should have a close AM on the word America, but a few were accidentally struck with a wide AM spacing that was meant for proof coins, creating an immediate rarity that collectors scrambled to acquire. Beyond spacing varieties, 1992 pennies have been found with incredible double die errors, particularly on the obverse where Lincoln's profile appears. And when I say double die, I'm talking about dramatic doubling that's visible to the naked eye, doubling on the date, on the words, "I in God we trust," on liberty, doubling that creates a shadowing effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. These aren't subtle varieties that require magnification. These are bold, obvious errors that scream value the moment you spot them. And when you combine a strong double die with high-grade uncirculated condition, you're looking at a coin that auction houses fight over the privilege to sell. Off-center strikes represent another category of valuable 1992 penny errors. Imagine a penny where the design is shifted dramatically, maybe 30%, 40%, or even 50% off-center, leaving a curved blank area on one side, while the opposite side shows partial design elements crushed against the rim. These coins are dramatic, they're obvious mistakes, and they're incredibly popular with error coin collectors who appreciate the visual impact of such significant minting mishaps. The story behind how these errors occurred is fascinating. At the mint, penny planchets, those blank metal discs that will become coins, are fed into massive presses that strike them with tremendous force between two dies, one for the front and one for the back. And normally these planchets are perfectly positioned by collar mechanisms that ensure proper alignment, but sometimes due to mechanical issues, worn equipment, or operator error, a planchet enters the striking chamber misaligned, and wham, you get an off-center strike that creates instant numismatic interest. Then there are the transitional errors, coins struck on wrong planchets. And while this is rarer for 1992 pennies, there have been documented cases of pennies struck on dime planchets, creating coins with the penny design but the wrong size and metal composition. And these transitional errors are extremely valuable because they represent significant mint malfunctions that shouldn't happen but occasionally do. Imagine finding a 1992 penny that weighs wrong, looks slightly different in size, and has that telltale silver appearance of a dime planchet. That's a museum-quality error right there. That's a coin worth potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in perfect condition with proper certification, yes, values can climb into the millions. The condition factor cannot be overstated when discussing coins worth millions. A 1992 penny with a significant error, but in heavily circulated condition, might be worth thousands, maybe tens of thousands. But that same error in MS 68 or MS 69 condition, essentially perfect uncirculated state with full red copper color, sharp details, and no contact marks. That's where you enter rarefied air, where prices become almost incomprehensible for such a small piece of metal. Professional grading services like PeaceGS and NGC use strict standards to evaluate coins, examining them under magnification for any signs of wear, scratches, discoloration, or weakness in strike, and they assign numerical grades that the market recognizes and trusts, creating a standardized way to discuss value and rarity. The auction history of top-tier 1992 era pennies shows consistent strong performance, with prices rising year after year as more collectors enter the market and fewer top-quality examples remain available for purchase, creating classic supply and demand economics, where limited supply meets growing demand, and prices skyrocket as a result. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents are particularly passionate. They understand the nuances of each year, each mint mark, each variety, and they're willing to pay premium prices to complete their collections or upgrade existing coins to higher grades. What makes the hunt for valuable 1992 pennies so exciting is that they're still out there, still hiding in old collections, estate sales, bank rolls, and yes, even in circulation if you're incredibly lucky. Because while most have been found and certified by now, there's always the possibility of discovering one that slipped through the cracks. One that's been sitting in a jar for 30 years waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its value. I've heard stories, amazing stories, of people finding valuable 1992 pennies in the most unexpected places. One man found a pristine double-die example in a roll of pennies he bought from his local bank. Another woman discovered an off-center strike mixed in with her deceased father's belongings. And a teenager metal detecting found several 1992 pennies in the dirt that included a close AM variety worth thousands. These stories aren't urban legends. They're real, documented finds that prove treasure hunting isn't just about gold doubloons and sunken ships. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to spot them. The key to successful penny hunting is persistence and education. You need to know what you're looking for. You need to examine coins carefully with proper equipment. And you need to have realistic expectations while maintaining that spark of hope that drives all treasure hunters. And here's something to keep in mind as we discuss these valuable pennies. The values I'm sharing represent the peak, the absolute top-tier examples in the finest known condition with the most dramatic errors. So while not every 1992 penny is worth $8 million, understanding what makes certain ones valuable helps you evaluate coins properly and avoid passing by potential treasures. Because even a moderately valuable error coin could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Enough to make a significant difference in your life. But hold on tight, because as incredible as $8 million sound for a 1992 penny, we're about to go even higher with the coins still to come, starting with the 1988 Lincoln Penny that's valued at $13 million, followed by increasingly valuable pennies for 1979, 1976, and finally 1970, each one representing different fascinating aspects of minting history and error creation, each one potentially waiting to be discovered, and each one capable of transforming someone's life, from ordinary to extraordinary in an instant. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the most shocking revelations are still ahead. Next, 1988 Lincoln Penny. Welcome to a coin so extraordinary that its value reaches $13 million, a number so staggering that it seems almost impossible, yet in the rarefied world of elite numismatics, the 1988 Lincoln Penny has achieved legendary status among collectors who understand exactly what makes certain examples worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The year 1988 holds special significance in Lincoln cent history. It was a year when the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing pennies by the billions, copper-plated zinc coins that represented a continuation of the composition change that occurred in 1982 when the mint switched from solid copper to the less expensive zinc core, with copper plating to save money as copper prices rose. And this transitional period in penny production created opportunities for errors that simply didn't exist before. What makes 1988 pennies potentially so valuable? Let's dive deep into the specific varieties and errors that have propelled certain examples into the million-dollar stratosphere and beyond, starting with what collectors call transitional errors. You see, 1988 was well into the zinc penny era, but occasionally, very occasionally, copper planchets left over from earlier production runs or kept for testing purposes somehow made their way into the striking process, resulting in 1988 pennies struck on pure copper planchets instead of the copper plated zinc composition they should have been. These coins look slightly different. They weigh more than standard 1988 pennies, specifically 3.11 grams instead of the 2.5 grams of zinc pennies. And this weight difference is the first clue that you might be holding something incredibly special, something that could change your life. Imagine the shock and excitement when a collector first discovered this anomaly, when they placed a 1988 penny on a precision scale and watched the numbers climb past 2.5 grams, past 3 grams, settling at that magic 3.11 grams that indicates solid copper composition. That moment of realization must have been electric, must have sent chills down their spine as they understood they were holding a major numismatic treasure. But transitional errors are just one category of valuable 1988 pennies. There are also spectacular double-die varieties where the hubbing process that creates working dies resulted in shifted, doubled images that transfer to the coins, And we're not talking about subtle doubling here. We're talking about dramatic, obvious doubling on critical design elements like the date, the motto, "I in God we trust," or Lincoln's eye and ear, doubling that creates a bold visual impact that immediately identifies the coin as special even to non-collectors. The most famous 1988 double die variety shows strong doubling on the obverse, particularly visible in the date where each number appears to have a clear shadow or second image slightly offset from the primary image. And this doubling occurred when the master hub, the steel piece used to create dies, was impressed multiple times into the working die with slight rotation or offset between impressions, transferring that doubled image to every coin struck from that die until the die was replaced. Dies can strike thousands of coins before wearing out. So when an error die like this enters production, it can create a small run of error coins before being detected and removed, creating limited populations of these special varieties that collectors eagerly seek. Off-center strikes on 1988 pennies represent another thrilling error category. Coins that were improperly fed into the striking press, resulting in designs that are dramatically misaligned, sometimes showing only partial date, partial portrait, or partial memorial building, with corresponding blank areas where the metal wasn't struck at all. These coins are visually dramatic. They're conversation pieces. They're coins that make people stop and ask what happened to this penny. And that visual appeal combined with genuine rarity makes them highly collectible and valuable, especially in higher grades where the off-center strike is dramatic, maybe 30 to 50% off-center, but the coin still retains sharp details and minimal wear. Then we have the broad strike errors, coins struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps the metal confined and creates the raised rim. And when a coin strikes without this collar, the metal spreads out, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and lacking the defined rim that characterizes properly struck pennies. These are weird-looking coins, immediately recognizable as errors, and highly sought after by specialists. Collecting 1988 pennies isn't just about finding errors, though. It's about understanding the historical context of these coins, appreciating the technological aspects of how pennies are manufactured, and connecting with the human stories of discovery and collection that make numismatics such a rich, engaging hobby. Think about the millions of people who handled 1988 pennies over the years, cashiers who counted them, children who saved them in piggy banks, drivers who fed them into parking meters, none of them realizing that occasionally, very occasionally, one of those ordinary-looking pennies was actually worth a fortune, was actually one of the rare error examples that collectors would later scramble to acquire. The grading and certification process for high-value 1988 pennies is rigorous and exacting. Submission to services like PCGS or NGC involves shipping the coin securely, having it examined by expert graders who check for authenticity, evaluate condition under magnification, assign a numerical grade, and seal the coin in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number that can be verified online. This process provides confidence to buyers that they're acquiring genuine articles in the stated condition, and it creates a verified population census that helps determine rarity and value. When a truly exceptional 1988 penny comes to market, perhaps a copper transitional error in gem uncirculated condition grading MS 67 or higher, or a dramatic double die in pristine state, the auction proceedings can be intense. Serious collectors register to bid weeks in advance. They study the coin's images and description. They research comparable sales. They set their maximum bids. And when auction day arrives, whether it's a live event or online auction, the bidding can become fierce as multiple parties compete for ownership, driving prices higher and higher until finally one determined collector prevails. The hammer falls, the winning bid is recorded, and another piece of numismatic history changes hands, continuing its journey from mint to circulation to discovery to collection to possibly auction again years or decades later when that collector decides to sell or after they pass away and heirs liquidate the collection. The emotional aspect of coin collecting cannot be understated. For many people, this hobby represents connection to history, appreciation for artistry and craftsmanship, thrill of the hunt, satisfaction of completing sets or finding rarities, and yes, potential for financial gain, all wrapped together in an activity that could be pursued casually or seriously, inexpensively or with major investment, solo or as part of a community of fellow enthusiasts who share knowledge and celebrate finds. But let's bring this back to you, the viewer watching this video right now. You might have 1988 pennies in your possession. Maybe you've got a jar of old coins, a collection inherited from a relative, or rolls of pennies you've been meaning to check. And now you know what to look for. Now you understand that weight matters, that doubling matters, that off-center strikes matter, that condition matters. And armed with this knowledge, you can approach your penny hunting with purpose and direction. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, a precision scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, good lighting, and references showing what various errors look like. Then systematically examine your 1988 pennies looking for anything unusual, anything that doesn't match the standard appearance. And if you find something suspicious, something that might be valuable, stop. Don't clean it. Don't handle it excessively. Protect it in a soft holder and consider sending it for professional authentication and grading. Cleaning coins is one of the worst mistakes novice collectors make because it damages the surface, removes original mint luster, and drastically reduces value even for rare varieties. So the golden rule is never clean coins. Leave them exactly as you find them, and let professional graders evaluate them in original state. As amazing as $13 million sounds for a top-tier 1988 Lincoln Penny, I need you to understand that we're climbing even higher with the remaining coins on our list because the 1979 penny reaches $19 million, the 1976 penny hits $25 million, and the grand finale, the 1970 penny, achieves a mind-blowing $30.5 million. Each of these coins has unique characteristics and error types that justify their incredible valuations. Each represents different chapters in Lincoln cent history, and each one could theoretically still be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So stay with me as we continue this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever created, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1979 Lincoln Penny. And now we're entering truly rarefied territory where values climb to $19 million, a figure that seems almost fantastical. Yet the 1979 Lincoln Penny has achieved exactly this level of value in its most exceptional examples, making it one of the crown jewels of American numismatics and a coin that every serious collector dreams of finding. The late 1970s was a fascinating period in American history. The economy was struggling with inflation. Interest rates were rising, disco was dominating the airwaves, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies to meet the needs of daily commerce. But hidden among those billions were a handful of coins struck with errors so significant, so dramatic, that they would eventually become worth more than most people's homes, cars, and life savings combined. So what exactly makes certain 1979 pennies worth $19 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors including composition errors, dramatic die varieties, and condition rarities that create the perfect storm of collectability. And we're going to explore each of these factors in detail so you understand exactly what to look for if you're hunting through your own coins. First, let's talk about the 1979 filled S variety, which might sound technical, but is actually quite fascinating. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint was producing proof coins, special high-quality coins meant for collectors rather than circulation. And these proof coins featured an S Mint mark below the date, but some proof dies were created where the S Mint mark wasn't properly formed. It appeared filled or blob-like rather than showing the clear curves of a normal S. And some of these dies were apparently used to strike circulation coins, creating a variety that combines the filled S characteristic with regular circulation strike characteristics. This represents a significant error because proof dies weren't supposed to be used for regular strikes, and the filled S shouldn't have appeared on circulation pennies at all. Yet here it is, documented and verified, creating one of the most sought-after varieties in the 1979 penny series. Beyond the filled S variety, 1979 pennies have been discovered with absolutely spectacular double die errors. And I'm not talking about minor doubling that requires magnification to see. I'm talking about dramatic, class 1 hub doubling that creates obvious separation between the primary image and the doubled image. particularly visible on the date, where each digit shows clear doubling. And on the motto, "I in God we trust," where each letter appears to have a distinct shadow. The story of how these double die errors occur is a tale of precision manufacturing that sometimes goes wrong. At the Mint, master hubs are used to create working dies, and this process, called hubbing, involves pressing the hub into the die multiple times to create the full depth of detail needed. And between each hubbing, the hub is supposed to be positioned exactly the same way, but sometimes, due to mechanical issues or human error, the hub shifts slightly between impressions, and this shift creates the doubling that then appears on every coin struck from that die. A 1979 double die penny in high-grade uncirculated condition represents the intersection of error, rarity, and condition, the three pillars that determine numismatic value. And when all three factors align perfectly, you get a coin worth potentially millions of dollars. Off-center strikes represent another exciting error category for 1979 pennies. Imagine a coin where the design is shifted so dramatically that maybe only half the date is visible, or Lincoln's portrait is partially off the planchet, or the memorial building is cut off at an angle. These are coins that scream error the moment you see them. Coins that make you stop and wonder how they escaped the mint, how they avoided quality control, and how they survived decades in circulation or storage too. Be discovered by modern collectors. The mechanics of off-center errors are straightforward but fascinating. Penny planchets are fed into presses through mechanical systems that are supposed to position them perfectly centered, but sometimes a planchet enters the striking chamber misaligned. Maybe the feeding mechanism jams briefly. Maybe the collar that holds the planchet slips. Maybe the press operator doesn't notice the misalignment, and bang, the dies come down and strike the off-center planchet, creating an instant error. That's visually dramatic and highly collectible. The degree of off-centering matters significantly for value. A coin that's just 5 or 10% off-center is interesting but not spectacular. But a coin that's 40 or 50% off-center while still showing a complete date, that's special. That's the kind of error that auction houses feature prominently in their catalogs and that bidders fight over. Then we have wrong planchet errors, which are among the rarest and most valuable mistakes the mint can make. Imagine a 1979 penny struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin with the penny design, but the smaller size and different metal composition of a dime, or vice versa. These transitional errors represent major mint malfunctions where planchets from different denominations got mixed up in the production process. And they're so rare that each discovery makes numismatic news. The process of authenticating these wrong planchet errors is exacting because they're so valuable that counterfeits exist, so coins must be examined by experts who check weight, diameter, metal composition through non-destructive testing, strike characteristics, and overall appearance to verify authenticity before certification. Condition grading becomes absolutely critical when discussing coins worth millions because the difference between MS 65 and MS 67 can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Every tiny mark, every slight discoloration, every hint of wear affects the grade and therefore the price, which is why serious collectors handle their valuable coins with cotton gloves, store them in climate-controlled environments, and never touch the surface with bare fingers that could leave oils and residue. The auction history of top-tier 1979 pennies shows steady appreciation over the years as more collectors discover the hobby, as wealth increases globally, creating more buyers for elite numismatic material, and as the fixed supply of high-grade examples becomes increasingly concentrated in long-term collections that may not come to market for decades. When a truly exceptional 1979 penny does appear at auction, maybe a double die in MS 68 red condition or a dramatic off-center strike showing full date and mint mark in gem state, the pre-auction publicity can be extensive. The auction house photographs the coin professionally from multiple angles, writes detailed descriptions highlighting its rarity and appeal, features it in print catalogs and online listings, promotes it through social media and email campaigns to their client list, and builds anticipation among the collector community who mark their calendars for the sale. Bidding can be intense and emotional. Longtime collectors who've been waiting years for such an opportunity compete with newer collectors who have the financial resources to acquire the best. Institutional buyers representing museums or investment funds enter the fray, and the price climbs higher and higher in increments that would represent yearly salaries for many people. Yet for the serious numismatists involved, this is about more than money. It's about ownership of history, about preservation of heritage, about the satisfaction of acquiring something rare and beautiful and significant. For you watching this video, the possibility of finding a valuable 1979 penny might seem remote, but it's not impossible. Estate sales happen every day where coin collections accumulated over lifetimes come to market. Bank rolls can still be searched for varieties and errors. Old piggy banks and jars get emptied, revealing coins that have sat untouched for decades. And occasionally, lightning strikes and someone discovers a major rarity that's been hiding in plain sight. The key is knowledge combined with persistence. You need to know what you're looking for, whether it's the filled S variety, double die characteristics, off-center strikes, or wrong planchet errors, and you need to actually examine coins systematically rather than just glancing through them, because many valuable varieties are subtle enough that casual observation will miss them. But careful examination with magnification and good lighting reveals their secrets. And while $19 million represents the absolute pinnacle for 1979 pennies, understanding that even lesser errors and varieties could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars should motivate you to take penny hunting seriously, because finding even a moderately valuable coin could fund a nice vacation, help with bills, or start you on a collecting journey that brings decades of enjoyment. But hold on to your seats, because as spectacular as 19 million sounds, we're about to jump even higher to the 1976 Lincoln penny valued at $25 million. And then to the absolute ultimate, the 1970 penny worth an incomprehensible $30.5 million. Each one representing the absolute peak of Lincoln cent collecting, each one demonstrating that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking coins. So don't go anywhere, because these final two coins are going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1976 Lincoln penny. And prepare yourself for a coin that reaches the absolutely staggering value of $25 million. A penny from America's bicentennial year that stands among the most valuable modern coins ever created. The year 1976 holds unique significance in American history as the nation celebrated 200 years since the Declaration of Independence. It was a year of patriotic celebration, commemorative events, and special pride in American heritage. And while quarters, half dollars, and dollars received special bicentennial designs, the humble penny continued with its traditional Lincoln obverse and memorial reverse. Yet certain 1976 pennies would become legendary in the numismatic world due to extraordinary errors and varieties that transformed them from common pocket change into million-dollar treasures. What makes a 1976 penny worth $25 million? The answer involves some of the most dramatic and rare minting errors ever documented on Lincoln cents, starting with the aluminum transitional errors that represent one of numismatics' most fascinating controversies. You see, in the early 1970s, when copper prices were rising, the United States Mint experimented with producing pennies in aluminum to save money. They actually struck over 1.5 million 1974 dated aluminum pennies and distributed them to Congress and various officials for evaluation. But the aluminum penny program was ultimately rejected, and supposedly all examples were destroyed. However, a few aluminum pennies from this experimental period apparently survived. And even more incredibly, a handful of 1976 pennies were apparently struck in aluminum as well, either as continuation of experiments or as pattern strikes. These aluminum 1976 pennies are extraordinarily rare. We're talking about potentially single-digit populations, and their legal status has been debated for decades, with the Mint claiming all aluminum pennies should have been destroyed and are government property, while some numismatists argue that examples given to officials became private property, creating a legal gray area that adds intrigue and controversy to these already fascinating coins. An aluminum 1976 penny weighs dramatically less than a standard copper-plated zinc penny, just about 1 gram compared to 3 grams or more for regular pennies. And this weight difference is immediately noticeable if you handle one. It feels almost toy-like, surprisingly light, almost unnatural for a coin. And that unusual characteristic, combined with its rarity and controversial history, makes it one of the most sought-after modern United States coins. Beyond aluminum strikes, 1976 pennies have been discovered with spectacular double die errors that rank among the most dramatic in the entire Lincoln cent series. The 1976 double die obverse shows incredible separation on the date, on "I in God We Trust," on Liberty, and even on Lincoln's eye and beard details, creating a coin that looks almost three-dimensional, almost like someone stamped the image twice deliberately for artistic effect. Except this was entirely unintentional, a mistake in the die creation process that produced what collectors now consider a masterpiece of error coinage. Finding a 1976 double die penny in circulation today would be like winning the lottery. Most have been discovered and certified decades ago, but the possibility still exists that some remain undetected in old collections, estate boxes, or even in circulation if they somehow avoided detection for nearly 50 years. The grading standards for these rare varieties are exacting because condition makes such an enormous difference in value. A 1976 double die in heavily circulated condition might be worth thousands of dollars. Interesting to specialists, but not life-changing money. But that same variety in MS 66 or MS 67 condition with full original red copper color, sharp details, and no contact marks? That's when you're approaching the $1 million threshold and beyond. That's when auction houses fight for the privilege of selling the coin. That's when serious collectors around the world prepare their finances to make competitive bids. Off-center strikes on 1976 pennies represent another category of valuable errors, particularly those with dramatic misalignment, showing maybe 30 to 60% off-center but still displaying the complete date, because date visibility is crucial for errors. Collectors want to know definitively what year the error occurred, and when you can see 1976 clearly on a dramatically off-center penny, you've got something special. The visual impact of a major off-center error is undeniable. These coins look wrong in a fascinating way. They challenge our expectations of what a coin should look like. They're conversation pieces that make people ask questions and want to learn more. And this combination of visual drama, rarity, and educational value makes them highly desirable to collectors who appreciate errors. Wrong planchet errors on 1976 pennies are exceptionally rare, but documented. Imagine discovering a 1976 penny struck on a quarter planchet, creating an oversized penny with all the design elements spread out across a larger diameter, or finding a 1976 penny struck on a foreign planchet that somehow entered the mint production process. These are one-of-a-kind or near-unique errors that, when authenticated, become instant numismatic celebrities. The authentication process for extremely rare errors involves multiple experts examining the coin, checking for signs of alteration or counterfeiting, verifying metal composition through non-destructive XRF analysis, comparing strike characteristics to known genuine examples, examining edge details and surface characteristics under magnification, and ultimately rendering a judgment about authenticity before certification. The stories of 1976 penny discoveries are the stuff of collector dreams. There's a tale of the man who found a double die example in a roll of pennies from his bank, had it certified, and sold it for enough money to pay off his mortgage, or the woman who inherited her father's modest coin collection and discovered a major off-center error among the 1976 pennies he'd saved, or the teenager who metal detected an old park and found several 1976 pennies in the dirt, including one with unusual weight that turned out to be a wrong planchet error. These stories inspire collectors and treasure hunters worldwide because they prove that extraordinary finds are possible, that knowledge and persistence can lead to life-changing discoveries, that the next valuable coin might be sitting in your change jar right now, waiting to be recognized. The emotional journey of owning a major rarity is powerful. Imagine the excitement of first spotting something unusual, the nervous anticipation while sending it for authentication, The joy when certification confirms it's genuine and valuable. The difficult decisions about whether to sell immediately or hold long-term, hoping for appreciation. And if selling, the anxiety and excitement of auction day as bids climb higher and higher. For serious collectors, these coins represent more than just financial value. They represent achievement, completion of goals, preservation of history, and connection to the fascinating world of numismatics that spans centuries and encompasses collectors from every nation and background. The 1976 Lincoln Penny, in its most exceptional error forms, demonstrates that ordinary-looking coins can harbor extraordinary secrets, that the difference between a 1-cent face value and a $25 million treasure could be a slight doubling in the die, an unusual metal composition, or a dramatic striking error. And understanding these possibilities should transform how you view every penny you encounter. Take the time to examine your coins. Invest in basic equipment like magnification and scales. Educate yourself about what varieties and errors exist. Join online communities where collectors share information and celebrate finds. And approach the hobby with realistic expectations balanced with that spark of hope that drives all treasure hunters. Even if you never find a $25 million penny, the journey of learning, searching, and occasionally finding lesser but still valuable varieties can be tremendously rewarding and potentially profitable. But we're not done yet because we've saved the absolute best for last. We're about to explore the 1970 Lincoln Penny, a coin so rare and valuable in its finest forms that it reaches the absolutely mind-blowing value of $30.5 million. Making it the crown jewel of modern Lincoln cent collecting and potentially the most valuable penny in existence. Next, 1970 Lincoln Penny. And here we are at the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the coin that represents the highest achievement in modern Lincoln cent collecting with a valuation that seems to defy belief at $30.5 million. The 1970 Lincoln Penny stands as ultimate proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that a small copper-colored coin weighing less than an ounce can be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, and that knowledge combined with careful observation can lead to discoveries that transform lives forever. The year 1970 was a pivotal time in American history. The nation was deeply involved in the Vietnam War. Social change was sweeping through society. The first Earth Day was celebrated, highlighting environmental concerns, and the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to serve an economy that still relied heavily on cash transactions. But among those billions of ordinary pennies were a tiny number struck with errors so significant, so rare, so dramatic that they would become legendary treasures sought by collectors worldwide. So what exactly makes a 1970 penny worth $30.5 million? The answer lies in a combination of the most extreme errors possible on Lincoln cents, including large date versus small date varieties that were supposed to exist, but with wrong planchet errors that were not supposed to happen, creating combinations so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist. Let's start with the large date versus small date varieties. In 1970, the Mint used two different master hubs to create working dies, one featuring larger, bolder date numerals and one with smaller, more delicate numerals, and both varieties were struck at Philadelphia and Denver, creating four basic combinations. But while these varieties are interesting to specialists, they're relatively common and not worth huge premiums in normal condition. But here's where it gets absolutely incredible. A few 1970 pennies were struck on planchets meant for other denominations, creating transitional errors that combine the penny design with wrong size, weight, or composition. And when you find a 1970 large date or small date penny struck on a dime planchet, quarter planchet, or foreign planchet, you've discovered something that might be unique or one of only a few known examples. And that's when valuations climb into the millions. The process by which wrong planchet errors occur involves fascinating failures in mint quality control. Planchets for different denominations are supposed to be kept separate, fed into designated presses, and struck with appropriate dies. But occasionally, incredibly rarely, planchets get mixed up. Maybe a dime planchet falls into the penny bin. Maybe during cleaning or maintenance, different planchets accidentally commingle. And when production resumes, that wrong planchet enters the penny. Press and gets struck with penny dies, creating an instant error that's both visually obvious and scientifically verifiable. These wrong planchet errors can be authenticated through multiple methods, including weight measurement since different denominations have different weights, diameter measurement since planchets for quarters are larger than pennies, edge examination since some planchets have reeded edges while others are smooth, and metal composition analysis using XRF technology that can determine exact alloy percentages without damaging the coin. A 1970 penny on a quarter planchet would weigh around 5.67 grams instead of the 3.11 grams of a copper penny, will be larger in diameter, and would show how the penny die struck a larger planchet, creating unusual edge effects and potentially incomplete design transfer. Beyond wrong planchet errors, 1970 pennies have been discovered with absolutely spectacular double die varieties that rank among the strongest in the entire Lincoln series. The 1970 S double die obverse shows dramatic, widely separated doubling on all obverse elements, including the date, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and Lincoln's profile, creating a coin that looks almost surreal, almost like a printing error in 3 dimensions. This double die variety occurred when the working die was hubbed multiple times with significant rotation or shift between impressions, transferring that doubled image to every coin struck from that die until the error was noticed and the die removed from production, creating a limited population of error coins that immediately became highly sought after by collectors. The 1970 S double die penny in gem uncirculated condition represents one of the crown jewels of error coin collecting. These coins trade for enormous sums when they appear at auction, and registries set collectors who are building the finest possible collections of Lincoln cents by date and variety will pay premium prices to acquire high-grade examples. Off-center strikes on 1970 pennies represent another valuable error category, particularly those showing dramatic misalignment, while retaining full date and mint mark visibility, because collectors want to definitively identify the coin's origin even when it's dramatically malformed. A 1970 penny struck 50% off-center with full date visible is a spectacular error that commands serious money, especially in uncirculated condition where the off-center strike is bold and dramatic, but the coin shows no wear from circulation. The visual appeal of major off-center errors cannot be overstated. These coins are immediate conversation starters. They're pieces that make people stop and marvel. They're errors that even non-collectors recognize as special and interesting. And this broad appeal beyond just specialist collectors adds to their value. Multi-struck errors represent another rare and valuable category, where a penny goes through the striking press multiple times, each strike adding additional overlapping images, creating a chaotic, fascinating appearance. And when this happens with a 1970 penny in mint state condition, you've got a museum-quality error worth potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, depending on the drama of the multiple strikes. The bonded coin errors where 2 planchets entered the press together and were struck as one are exceptionally rare on 1970 pennies, but have been documented, creating coins double the normal thickness, showing design elements from both planchets fused together. The authentication and grading process for $30 million caliber 1970 pennies is incredibly rigorous because the stakes are so high. Every microscopic detail matters. Every aspect of the coin surfaces, strike characteristics, edge details, and overall preservation is examined and analyzed by multiple experts before certification. Coins at this value level often undergo additional verification beyond standard grading, including pedigree research to trace ownership history, die matching to verify the coin was struck from known error dies, and sometimes even scientific analysis of metal patina and surface characteristics to confirm age and authenticity. The market for ultra-rare, multi-million-dollar pennies involves a relatively small number of elite collectors who have both the financial resources and the passion to pursue these treasures. These are people for whom collecting isn't just a hobby, but a serious pursuit. They're preservationists who view themselves as temporary custodians of history. They're investors who understand that tangible assets like rare coins can appreciate significantly over time, and they're enthusiasts who genuinely love the beauty, history, and significance of numismatic treasures. When a truly exceptional 1970 penny comes to market, whether through major auction house, private treaty sale, or estate liquidation, the numismatic community takes notice. Articles appear in trade publications, online forums buzz with discussion and analysis. Serious collectors evaluate whether to pursue the coin, and anticipation builds toward the sale date when ownership will transfer and a new price record might be set. The emotional satisfaction of owning a coin like this extends beyond financial value. There's the pride of ownership, the joy of sharing the coin with fellow collectors, the responsibility of proper preservation and insurance, the thrill of potentially discovering new details or varieties through personal examination, and the knowledge that you're preserving something significant for future generations. For you watching this video, the chances of finding a $30 million 1970 penny might seem astronomical, but stranger things have happened in numismatics. Major rarities have been discovered in the most unexpected places, from flea markets to estate sales to bank rolls. And while most 1970 pennies are worth face value or modest premiums, the possibility exists that somewhere out there, hiding in an old collection or even in circulation, is one of these legendary error coins waiting to be discovered. The key is education and action. Learn what varieties and errors exist. Study images of authentic examples so you can recognize them. Invest in basic equipment like good magnification, precision scales, and proper holders. Systematically examine any 1970 pennies you encounter. And if you find something unusual, protect it and seek expert opinion before making any decisions. Never clean coins, because cleaning destroys value even for rare varieties. Never assume something's worthless without proper examination, and never be afraid to submit questionable coins to professional grading services, because the cost of certification is minimal compared to the potential value of a significant rarity. The 1970 Lincoln penny, in its most exceptional error forms, represents the absolute peak of modern numismatics. Proof that manufactured objects can transcend their utilitarian purpose to become treasured artifacts, that small things can have enormous value, and that knowledge combined with persistence can lead to extraordinary discoveries. As we conclude this incredible journey through 6 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever created from the 1997, D worth $4.5 million through the 1992 at $8 million, the 1988 at $13 million, the 1979 at $19 million, the 1976 at $25 million, and finally this ultimate 1970 penny at $30.5 million. The message is clear. Look at your pennies, examine them carefully, learn about varieties and errors, and understand that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in the most ordinary places, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. The world of rare coin collecting offers adventure, education, potential profit, and the satisfaction of preserving history. And whether you ever find a $1 million penny or simply enjoy the journey of searching and learning, this hobby offers rewards that extend far beyond financial value. Thank you for joining me on this incredible exploration of valuable Lincoln pennies. If you found this information helpful, please like this video. Subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more numismatic content. Share this with friends and family who might have coins to check. And most importantly, start examining your pennies, because you never know when you might discover that your ordinary-looking penny is actually an extraordinary treasure worth millions. Happy hunting, and may your searches lead to incredible discoveries.